Good morning, Zach. It is Wednesday, March 21st, and you wanted me to talk about my CS web browser project. To answer some of your questions, it's not something you would want to use to browse the actual web because it doesn't do much. It only takes care of a few very specific HTML elements, and those not nearly enough to browse the real web. But it uses similar processes to what a real browser would use to do things. So I made little note slides. The project was called Sparkzilla. I don't know what the spark means, but Zilla, yay! It was divided up into two projects actually. One which is just a textual browser, which ran in a terminal, which you can think of as like the command prompt on your computer. And the second was we're currently doing it, writing a server and a graphical interface for the browser. So that's fun. Now, one of the big concepts behind this is network communication. And the way that happens is with sockets. So we have a client, which is basically the browser sending info to its socket, and the server receiving info on its socket. And these sockets are connected because this socket knows this socket's name, and they communicate on the same port. And Java provides these sockets. You just have to know how to use them, how to use a buffered input stream reader, output stream writer with them. So we didn't actually implement very specific networking things. We were just using the concepts behind networking in order to get this communication across. Okay, so what does the textual browser do? We got a 98 on this part because it was the first project, so it was already rated. It runs in the terminal. What it does is, when you enter a URL, it sends an HTTP request over the network with the sockets, and then from the server it receives a response. Then we have that string of HTML, which is going to be the page. There's also some information in that string, but for the most part we could ignore that information because we're not doing much with it. So we have to parse the HTML, which basically means make sure it's syntactically right, and put it in a form that we could then render onto the terminal screen, which then that happens, and then we allow the user to follow any links or submit data into forms, that sort of stuff. And when that happens, like submitting data into a form, it gets sent to a server. And we also have to write one of these now, so I'll talk about that. Basically, the main part of the server is just an infinite loop waiting for a client, and when it gets a client, it receives an HTTP request and figures out, okay, this person wants to go to this page, or this person submitted this data, so I'll do this or that with it. And so all that stuff's figured out. And then a page is sent back, which then is taken care of by the browser. And if the user inputs data, we're going to have to save that somehow. And yeah, that's the gist of that. And then the GUI, we're using the Java Swing library. It'll have a text field for entering a URL, a back button to go back to the previous page, a go button, and an area for the page. So it'll look something like that. And as far as you using it, I could add some extended features so that you could read actual web pages, but holy crap, it's been 4 minutes. I'll see you eventually.